My name is Madison Brooks. I am 40 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in the United States. I held the small, black velvet box tight in my hand. My palm was sweating. Inside that box were the keys to a brand new Ford truck. It cost me $40,000. I had saved for 2 years to buy it. I looked across the dinner table at my nephew, Dylan. It was his 20th birthday. He was laughing with his friends, ignoring me like he usually did. I took a deep breath. I thought this gift would finally fix things. I thought it would make him see me. I stood up and handed him the box. The room went quiet. He opened it and saw the silver keys glinting under the lights. His eyes went wide for a second, but he didn't say thank you. He didn't come to hug me. Instead, he slowly raised his beer bottle high in the air. He looked right at me with a cold, cruel smirk, then he announced it to the whole table. "My idiot aunt thinks she can buy respect." My sister laughed. My brother-in-law laughed. The whole room erupted in laughter. They weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at me. In that moment, the love I had held for them didn't break. It just turned off. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Madison Brooks. I am 40 years old. I have a good job. I have a clean house. I pay my bills on time. I have always done what I was supposed to do, but sitting in that restaurant, I felt very small. We were at a steakhouse downtown. It was expensive. The lights were dim. The tablecloths were white and crisp. The smell of grilled meat and expensive wine filled the air. It was Dylan's 20th birthday. I was paying for the dinner. That was my role. I was the provider. I was the aunt who showed up with the checkbook. My sister, Marlene, sat across from me. She looked tired. She always looked tired. She was drinking a glass of Chardonnay. Next to her was her husband, Greg. Greg was looking at his phone. He barely looked at me when I walked in. That was normal. And then there was Dylan. He sat at the head of the table. He looked handsome. He had Marlene's eyes and Greg's jawline. He was wearing a shirt I had bought him for Christmas. He looked like a man, but he didn't act like one. He was laughing loudly at a joke his friend made. He didn't look at me. I touched the velvet box in my pocket again. It was square and hard. It felt heavy. Inside were the keys to a Ford F-150. It was black. It had leather seats. It had a powerful engine. It was parked outside, around the corner. I had told the valet to keep it ready. I had spent 2 years saving for this truck. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't buy new clothes. I drove my old sedan that rattled when I went over 60 miles an hour. I did all of this for Dylan. Why? Because I wanted him to respect me. It sounds sad when I say it out loud, but it is the truth. I wanted to buy my way into his heart. I thought if I gave him something big, something huge, he would finally stop seeing me as a joke. He would see me as his aunt who loved him. The waiter cleared the plates. The conversation was loud. Dylan was telling a story about his college classes. He was failing 2 of them. He laughed about it. "The professor is a total loser," Dylan said. "He actually expects me to read the book." Greg laughed. "Good luck with that, son." Marlene smiled. She didn't correct him. She never corrected him. I cleared my throat. My heart was beating fast. It was thumping against my ribs. "Dylan," I said. He didn't hear me. He was busy pouring more beer into his glass. "Dylan," I said a little louder. He turned his head slowly. He looked annoyed. "What, Aunt Maddie?" He hated calling me Madison. He called me Maddie because he knew I didn't like it. It made me sound like a child. "I have something for you," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. I tried to sound confident. "Happy birthday." I pulled the black velvet box out of my pocket. I placed it on the white tablecloth. It looked very dark against the white fabric. The table went quiet. Dylan's friend stopped talking. Marlene put down her wine glass. Greg finally looked up from his phone. Dylan reached out. His hand was large. He picked up the box. He shook it a little. "What is it?" he asked. "Jewelry. Did you get me a necklace, Maddie?" His friend snickered. "Just open it," I said. He popped the lid open. The light from the chandelier hit the silver keys. They shined. There was a Ford logo on the keychain. Dylan froze. He stared at the keys. For 1 second, just 1 second, I saw shock on his face. I saw the little boy he used to be. The little boy I used to babysit. The boy I used to read stories to. "Is this real?" he asked. "It's parked outside," I said. I smiled. I felt a rush of hope. "It's a brand new F-150. It's all yours." "I paid for the insurance for the first year too," Marlene gasped. "Madison, you didn't." "I did," I said. "I wanted to help him get a fresh start, for his jobs, for school." I waited. I waited for the smile. I waited for him to jump up. I waited for the hug. I imagined him coming around the table and squeezing me tight. I imagined him saying, "Thank you, Aunt Madison. You are the best." But he didn't move. The shock on his face faded. It was replaced by something else, a smirk, a cold, ugly smirk. He closed the box. He tossed it onto the table. It made a dull thud. He picked up his beer bottle. He raised it high in the air like he was making a toast. He looked right into my eyes. His eyes were empty of love. They were full of mockery. "To my Aunt Madison," he announced. His voice was loud. Everyone in the restaurant could hear him. "My idiot aunt thinks she can buy respect." The silence that followed lasted only a second. Then the laughter started. It started with Dylan, a loud, barking laugh. Then his friends joined in. They slapped the table. Then Greg chuckled. He shook his head like it was just boys being boys. And then the worst part. Marlene laughed, my own sister. The woman I had supported through her divorce, through her financial troubles, through everything. She put her hand over her mouth and giggled. "Oh, Dylan," she said, "you are terrible." She didn't say stop, she didn't say that is cruel. She said you are terrible in a way that meant you are funny. I sat there. I felt frozen. My hands were in my lap. I dug my fingernails into my palms. It hurt, but the pain in my chest was worse. They were laughing at me. I had just given him a $40,000 gift, and he called me an idiot, and they laughed. Suddenly, the past 20 years came rushing back to me. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was how it always was. I remembered the Christmas dinner 3 years ago. I was single. I had been single for a long time. I focused on my career. I was an accountant. I was good at my job. I made good money. But to them, I was just a sad, lonely woman. At that Christmas dinner, Dylan had made a joke. "Aunt Maddie is married to her spreadsheets," he had said. "She probably cuddles with a calculator at night." The whole family had laughed then, too. "It's just a joke, Madison," Marlene had said when she saw my face. "Don't be so sensitive. He's just teasing." I remembered the time I brought a date to a barbecue. His name was Mark. He was a nice man. He was quiet. Dylan was 17 then. He spent the whole afternoon making fun of Mark's shoes. He made fun of the way Mark ate his corn. Mark never called me back. "He was too sensitive," Marlene had said. "If he can't take a joke from a teenager, he isn't man enough for you." They always blamed me. If I was hurt, I was too sensitive. If I got angry, I was crazy. If I cried, I was dramatic. Dylan was the golden boy. He could do no wrong. When he failed his driving test the first time, it was the instructor's fault. Marlene said the man was biased. When he got caught drinking at school, it was his friend's fault. Marlene said they pressured him. When he lost his first job for being late, it was the boss's fault. Marlene said the boss was a tyrant. He was never responsible, he was never held accountable, and I was always the punchline. I looked at him now. He was 20 years old. He was an adult. He wasn't a child anymore. There were no excuses left. He was still holding the beer. He was grinning at his friends. He looked proud of himself. He thought he had won. He thought he had taken my gift and humiliated me at the same time. He thought he was powerful. He looked at the keys on the table. "Thanks for the wheels, though," he said, not looking at me. "I'm gonna look sick in that truck." "Yeah, you will," his friend said. "We can take it to the lake this weekend." "Totally," Dylan said. "We are going to trash that thing." He laughed again. "Trash it, it's free, right?" My heart stopped beating fast. It slowed down. It went very cold. I looked at Marlene. She was wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. She caught my eye. She saw that I wasn't laughing. "Oh, come on, Madison," she said. Her voice was dismissive. "Don't look like that. He's just happy. He loves the truck. He's just being Dylan." He's just being Dylan. That was the sentence that had ruined him. That was the sentence that had ruined our relationship. I looked at the food on my plate. I had ordered the salmon. I hadn't taken a single bite. I looked at the wine in my glass. I hadn't taken a sip. I realized something then. I was the one who taught them how to treat me. I had allowed this. I had laughed along in the past because I wanted to belong. I had accepted their apologies when they weren't real. I had kept giving them gifts, money, and time, hoping they would value me. But you cannot buy respect. Dylan was right about that. You cannot buy respect from people who enjoy hurting you. The waiter came back to the table. "Is everything okay here?" he asked. He looked confused by the laughter and my stone-cold face. "Everything is great," Dylan said. "My aunt just told a really funny joke." He pointed at me with his beer bottle. "She's a comedian." I looked at the waiter. I didn't smile. "Check, please," Greg said. "Oh no," Marlene said. Madison is getting this, right, Madison? It's her treat. She smiled at me. It was a greedy smile. She expected me to pay for the $300 dinner where they mocked me. She expected me to pay for the privilege of being insulted. I looked at the check folder the waiter placed on the table. It sat next to the velvet box. I looked at my hands. They were steady now. The shaking had stopped. I thought about the truck parked outside. It smelled like new car. It had 0 miles on it. I had imagined Dylan driving it to job interviews. I had imagined him picking up a date. I had imagined him helping Marlene with groceries. I had built a fantasy in my head. A fantasy where my family was kind. A fantasy where my generosity was appreciated. But reality was sitting right in front of me. Reality was a 20-year-old boy with a smirk drinking beer and calling me an idiot. I took a deep breath. The air in the restaurant felt thin. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. It was a loud sound. Marlene looked up. "Where are you going?" "The bathroom." I didn't answer. I reached for my purse. I put the strap over my shoulder. "Madison?" Marlene asked. Her voice changed. It wasn't laughing anymore. It was confused. I looked at Dylan. He was still smiling, but the smile was faltering a little. He looked at me standing there. "What's up, Maddie?" he asked. "You leaving?" I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't flip the table. I simply turned my back on them. "Madison," Marlene called out. "Wait, the bill." I kept walking. I walked past the other tables. I walked past the happy families celebrating birthdays. I walked past the couples holding hands. I heard Marlene's voice rising. "Madison, you can't just leave. We ordered dessert." I reached the heavy wooden doors of the restaurant. I pushed them open. The night air hit my face. It was cool. It was crisp. It felt like freedom. I walked to the valet stand. The young man smiled at me. "Leaving already, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice was calm. It surprised me how calm it was. "Do you want me to get the truck?" he asked. "The new one?" I looked down the street. I saw the black F-150 parked under a street lamp. It looked beautiful. It looked powerful. "No," I said. "I have the keys." I didn't have the keys. The keys were on the table. But I had the spare key in my purse. I always kept a spare, just in case. "Actually," I said to the valet, "I'm going to walk for a minute. My sister will handle the bill inside." I lied. I knew Marlene didn't have the money. Greg's credit card was maxed out. I knew this because I did their taxes. They would be stuck with the bill. They would have to scramble. They would be embarrassed. For the first time in my life, I didn't care. I walked away from the restaurant. I walked into the darkness of the parking lot. I could still hear the faint sound of laughter coming from inside, but I knew it would stop soon. It would stop as soon as the waiter brought the credit card machine. I walked to my old sedan. I got in. I sat in the driver's seat. It was cold. The seats were worn. I put my hands on the steering wheel. I looked at the restaurant entrance. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then I saw the doors fly open. Marlene came out. She was holding her phone to her ear. She looked frantic. She was looking around the parking lot. Greg followed her. He looked angry. He was waving his arms. Dylan came out last. He was holding the velvet box. He looked confused. I watched them. I was hidden in the shadows. They couldn't see me. They were looking for me. They wanted me to fix it. They wanted me to pay. They wanted me to apologize for ruining the night. I started my car. The engine rumbled. I didn't turn on my headlights. I backed out of the spot slowly. I drove out of the lot by the back exit. I left them there. I drove home in silence. I didn't turn on the radio. I just listened to the sound of the tires on the pavement. My phone started to buzz. It was in my purse on the passenger seat. Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was Marlene. Then Greg. Then Dylan. I didn't look at it. I got to my house. It was a small house, but it was mine. I had paid for it myself. It was quiet. I walked into my kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water. I stood by the window and looked out at my backyard. The phone was still buzzing in my purse. I felt something strange. I checked myself. Was I sad? No. Was I crying? No. I touched my face. My cheeks were dry. Usually, after a family dinner, I would be crying. I would be wondering what I did wrong. I would be planning how to apologize. But tonight, I felt nothing. It was a cold, hard feeling. It was like a switch had been flipped. I had spent 40 years trying to be good. I had spent 40 years trying to be loved. And tonight, I realized it was a waste of time. They didn't love me. They loved what I gave them. They loved that I was a punching bag. They loved that I was an ATM. I took a sip of water. It was cool and refreshing. I looked at the clock on the stove. It was 10 p.m. They would be home soon. Dylan would be driving the truck. He would be showing it off to his neighbors. He would be laughing about how his idiot aunt stormed out but left the truck behind. He thought he had won. He thought the truck was his. He was wrong. I set the glass down on the counter. I went to my bedroom. I took off my nice dress. I put on a pair of black jeans and a black hoodie. I put on my sneakers. I sat on the edge of my bed. I waited. I needed to wait until they were asleep. I needed to wait until the alcohol settled in their systems. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 3 text messages. Marlene, where are you? You stuck us with the bill. Marlene, call me now, this is so selfish. Greg, Dylan is upset. You ruined his birthday. I stared at the messages. I ruined his birthday. I laughed. It was a short, dry sound. I looked at the time. 11:30 p.m. Not yet. I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I replayed the dinner in my mind. My idiot aunt thinks she can buy respect. The words echoed in my head. No, Dylan, I thought, you can't buy respect. But you can definitely lose it. And he had lost it. He had lost me. At 2:45 a.m. I sat up. The house was silent. The neighborhood was silent. I grabbed my keys, not my car keys. The spare key to the F-150. I walked out to my car. I drove quietly through the empty streets. Marlene and Greg lived 5 miles away. It was a nice neighborhood. I had helped them with the down payment on their house 10 years ago. They had never paid me back. I turned onto their street. It was dark. Most of the houses had their porch lights off. I saw it immediately. The black Ford F-150 was parked in their driveway. It was parked crookedly. Dylan had done a bad job parking it. One wheel was on the grass. I parked my car 2 houses down. I turned off the engine. I pulled my hood up over my head. I walked down the sidewalk. My footsteps were silent. I reached their driveway. The house was dark. They were asleep. I walked up to the truck. I touched the cold metal. It was a beautiful machine. It didn't deserve to be driven by a boy who mocked the person who bought it. I pressed the unlock button on the remote. The lights flashed. The locks clicked open. I froze. I waited to see if a light would turn on in the house. Nothing. I opened the driver's door. I climbed in. It still smelled like the dealership. I put the key in the ignition. I turned it. The engine roared to life. It was loud. I held my breath. I put it in reverse. I backed out of the driveway. I didn't turn on the headlights yet. I swung the truck onto the street. I shifted into drive. I pressed the gas. I drove away. I didn't look back at the house. I just drove. I drove the 5 miles back to my house. I pulled the truck into my garage. It was a tight fit, but I made it. I turned off the engine. The garage was suddenly very quiet. I got out. I closed the garage door. The heavy metal door slid down, shutting out the world. I was alone in the garage with the truck. I went to my tool bench. I grabbed a wrench. I popped the hood of the truck. I disconnected the battery. Then I grabbed a large canvas tarp I used for painting. I threw it over the truck. I covered it completely. It looked like a large, shapeless lump in my garage. I dusted off my hands. I went back inside my house. I locked the door. I went into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. I sat at the table and drank it. It was 3:30 a.m. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I knew what was coming. I knew the storm that would hit in the morning. They would wake up. Dylan would look out the window. The truck would be gone. They would panic. They would call the police. They would think it was stolen. And then they would remember the spare key. They would remember me. My phone was on the table. It was silent for now. But I knew the explosion was coming. I finished my tea. I rinsed the cup. I went to bed. I slept better than I had in 20 years. I woke up at 7 a.m. The sun was shining through my curtains. For a moment, I forgot what had happened. I felt rested. Then I looked at my phone. The screen was full of notifications. It was a solid wall of text. 65 missed calls, 42 text messages, 12 voicemails. They were all from Marlene, Greg, and Dylan. I scrolled through them. The tone changed from confusion to anger to pure rage. Marlene, 11:45 p.m. Madison, pick up. This isn't funny. Greg, 12:30 a.m. The truck is gone. Did you take it? That is theft. Dylan, 1:15 a.m. You are a psycho. Bring my truck back right now or I'm calling the cops. Marlene, 2 a.m. We know you took it. The valet said you had a key. How dare you? He is devastated. I put the phone down. I didn't reply. I didn't feel guilty. I went to the kitchen and started the coffee maker. I could hear the birds singing outside. It was a beautiful morning. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when the pounding started. Bam, 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 it was my front door. The house shook with the force of it. Madison, open this door. It was Dylan. I didn't rush. I took a sip of coffee. I walked slowly to the living room. Through the window, I saw him. He was wearing the same clothes as last night. He looked disheveled. His face was red. He pounded again. I know you're in there. I see your car. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. Dylan stood there. He was breathing hard. His hands were balled into fists. He looked at me with pure hatred. Where is it? He screamed. He didn't say hello. He just screamed. Good morning, Dylan, I said calmly. Don't give me that, he spat. Where is my truck? I know you took it. You stole my property. I leaned against the doorframe. It's not your property, Dylan. The title is in my name. I bought it. I paid for it. And last night you made it very clear what you think of me. He stepped closer. He was tall, over 6 feet. He used his height to intimidate people. He loomed over me. I was joking, he yelled. God, you are so sensitive. It was a joke. Everyone laughed. Why do you have to be such a drama queen? I don't find it funny, I said. And I don't give $40,000 gifts to people who call me an idiot. His face twisted. You are an idiot. You're a sad, lonely old woman who thinks she can buy people because she has no life. No one likes you, Madison. Mom tolerates you because you pay for things. Dad thinks you're weird, and I think you're pathetic. The words hit me like stones. They were the things I had always feared they thought. Now he was saying them out loud. Give me the keys, he demanded. He held out his hand. Now, no, I said. He grabbed my arm. His grip was tight. It hurt. I said give me the keys, he shouted. He shook me. I looked at his hand on my arm. Then I looked at his eyes. There was no love there. There was only entitlement. He thought he could hurt me and I would just take it. He thought I was weak. I wasn't weak anymore. I pulled my arm back. I didn't pull away in fear. I pulled back to wind up. I slapped him. It was a hard slap. My palm connected with his cheek with a loud crack. He stumbled back. He let go of my arm. He touched his face, looking at me in total shock. His mouth hung open. I had never hit him. I had never hit anyone. Get off my porch, I said. My voice was low, it was steady. And do not ever touch me again. You hit me, he stammered. He looked like a child suddenly. I am done, Dylan, I said. I am done paying. I am done listening. I am done being the punching bag. The truck is mine. You aren't getting it. Now leave, or I will call the police and tell them you assaulted me. He stared at me for a long moment. He was trying to find the old Madison, the one who would apologize, the one who would cry. He didn't find her. You're crazy, he muttered. He backed down the steps. You're actually crazy. Goodbye, Dylan, I said. I closed the door in his face. I locked the deadbolt. My hand was stinging. My heart was racing, but I didn't cry. I went back to the kitchen and finished my coffee. 2 hours later, the phone rang again. It was Marlene. I almost didn't answer. But then I thought, no, I will face this. I am not hiding. I picked up. Hello, Marlene. He crashed, Marlene said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was shaking. It was small. My stomach dropped. What, Dylan, she sobbed. He crashed my car. He's at the hospital. Is he okay? I asked. I felt a flicker of worry. He was still my nephew. He's fine, she said. Bruises, a sprained wrist, but the car. Madison, my car is gone. It's totaled. What happened? He was so angry when he left your house, Marlene said. She was crying harder now. He came home screaming. He took my keys off the counter. I tried to stop him, but he just pushed past me. He said he was going to go for a drive to cool off. He was driving so fast. He ran a red light at the intersection by the mall. He T-boned a delivery van. I closed my eyes. Is the other driver okay? Yes, thank God, she said. But the police are there. They gave Dylan a ticket, reckless driving, and my insurance might not cover it because he's not on the policy for my car. She took a ragged breath. Madison, I don't know what to do. I have no car. Greg is at work. Dylan is sitting in the emergency room screaming at the nurses. Can you come? Please, we need you. The old me would have grabbed my purse. The old me would have rushed to the hospital. The old me would have offered to pay for a rental car for Marlene. The old me would have paid Dylan's ticket. No, I said, silence on the other end. What? I'm not coming, Marlene, I said. But he's hurt. I'm stranded. You have a husband, I said. Call Greg, call a taxi, but do not call me to fix this. How can you be so cold? She whispered. He's your nephew. He is an adult who stole your car and crashed it because he was having a tantrum, I said. And last night you laughed when he spit in my face. You laughed, Marlene. I didn't mean it like that, she stammered. You did, I said. And now you are dealing with the consequences of raising a son who thinks the world owes him everything. I am not coming. I hung up the phone. I sat on my couch. The house was quiet. I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. I was grieving the family I wished I had, but I was relieved to be free of the family I actually had. That evening, Marlene came to my door. She didn't have a car, so she must have taken an Uber. She looked 10 years older than she had the night before. Her eyes were swollen. Her shoulders were slumped. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table. "He's home," she said quietly. "Greg picked us up. Dylan is in his room. He's blaming the other driver. He's blaming the wet road. He's blaming you." "Of course he is," I said. "He said if you hadn't stolen his truck, he wouldn't have been driving my car," Marlene said. She looked at me with sad eyes. "He really believes that." "Do you believe it?" I asked. Marlene looked down at her hands. She twisted her wedding ring. "I don't know, Marlene," I said sharply. "He ran a red light." "I know," she whispered. "He called me a pathetic loser last night," I said. "And you laughed." Marlene started to cry again. "I was just trying to keep the peace, Madison. You know how he is. If I don't laugh, he gets angry at me too. I'm scared of him sometimes. Not that he'll hit me, but his anger, it fills the whole house. It's easier to just go along with it. And that is why he is the way he is," I said, "because you go along with it." Marlene put her head in her hands. "I'm so tired, Madison. I'm so tired. The car is gone. We don't have money for a new one. Greg is furious. And Dylan, he just expects us to fix it. He asked me an hour ago when I was going to get a rental so he could go see his friends." She looked up at me. Her face was full of pain. "I told him no," she said. "For the first time, I told him no." "Good," I said. "He threw a vase against the wall," she said. "He broke my mother's blue vase." I reached across the table and touched her hand. "He needs to learn, Marlene, and you need to stop protecting him." "I think he needs to leave," she said. Her voice trembled. "I don't think he can stay in the house right now. Greg wants to kick him out." I think I agree." She looked at me hopefully. "Can he stay here, just for a few days, until he calms down?" I pulled my hand back. "Absolutely not. Please, Madison, he respects you deep down." "He hates me," I said. "And I don't feel safe around him. He grabbed me this morning. He was physically aggressive. I will not have him in my home." Marlene looked shocked. "He grabbed you?" "Yes." Marlene slumped back in her chair. "Oh God. What have we done?" "You didn't do it alone," I said, "but you have to stop it now." She nodded slowly. You're right. She stood up. "I should go. Greg is waiting for me." She walked to the door. She paused and looked back. "I'm sorry, Madison, about the dinner. You didn't deserve that." "No," I said, "I didn't." Dylan didn't stay at home. Greg kicked him out that night. He didn't come to me. He knew that bridge was burned. Instead, he went to Aunt Valerie. Valerie was our father's younger sister. She lived in a bungalow on the other side of town. She was the cool aunt. She burned sage to clear negative energy. She collected crystals. She believed that rules were oppressive constructs. She had always told Dylan that he was a free spirit who shouldn't be tied down by conventional expectations. She was the enabler's enabler. For 3 days, it was quiet. I went to work. I came home. I worked in my garden. I didn't hear from anyone. I kept the truck in the garage, covered by the tarp. I had disconnected the battery just to be safe. I figured Dylan was too busy sulking at Valerie's to bother me. I was wrong. On the 4th day my phone rang. It was Valerie. "Madison," her voice was tight. It was high-pitched, bordering on hysteria. "Hi, Valerie," I said. "You have to come get him," she said. "You have to come get Dylan." "I'm not coming," I said. "What happened? I thought you guys were vibing." "He's a monster," Valerie cried. "He is an absolute monster." I tried to be nice. I made him organic meals. I gave him the guest room. I told him he could heal his trauma here. "And he refuses to help," she shouted. I asked him to take out the trash, and he laughed at me. He called my crystals stupid rocks. He eats all my food and leaves the wrappers on the floor. And last night, she paused, taking a ragged breath. Last night I told him to turn down the TV because I had a migraine. He screamed at me. He called me he used a word I won't repeat. He said I was his servant. He said I was lucky he was even staying in my dump of a house. "Welcome to the club, Valerie," I said dryly. "I can't handle him," she wept. "He scares me. I told him to leave, but he won't go. He's sitting on my couch watching football and eating my chips. He says he's not going anywhere until he gets a car." "Call the police," I said. "I can't call the police on family," she gasped. "Then live with it," I said. "Those are your choices, evict him or serve him." "Madison, please, you're the sensible one, you have authority." "No," I said. I'm the idiot aunt, remember? I have no authority. You spent years telling him he was a special indigo child who didn't need rules. Now you're dealing with the adult version of that. I'm kicking him out, she said, her voice hardening. I don't care where he goes. I'm throwing his bags on the lawn right now. Good luck, I said. I hung up. I knew what would happen next. He had burned through Marlene. He had burned through Valerie. He had burned through me. He was running out of places. And when a narcissist runs out of supply, they get desperate. That night, I went to a late movie with a friend. It was the first time I had gone out in months. It felt good to laugh at a comedy. It felt good to be away from the drama. I got home around 11:30 p.m. I pulled my sedan into the driveway. I noticed something immediately. The motion sensor light above the garage was on. I frowned. A cat must have triggered it. I walked to the front door. I unlocked it. Inside, the house felt wrong. A draft was coming from somewhere. I walked down the hallway to the door that led to the garage. It was slightly ajar. My heart started to pound. I had locked that door. I always locked that door. I pushed it open. The garage light was on. The tarp was on the floor, crumpled in a heap. The spot where the truck had been was empty. My stomach turned over. He had done it. He had come here while I was out. He must have broken a window. I saw the glass on the floor near the side door of the garage. He had broken in, but the battery, I had disconnected it. I walked over to the tool bench. My wrench was missing. He had figured it out. Or he had looked up a YouTube video. It wasn't rocket science. He had the truck. I ran back into the house. I grabbed my phone to call the police. But before I could dial, a FaceTime call came through. It was Dylan. I answered it. His face filled the screen. It was dark, but I could see the dashboard lights. The blue glow of the instrument panel illuminated his face. He was grinning. A wild, manic grin. Guess who got his wheels back? He shouted. The wind was rushing. The windows were down. Dylan, stop the truck, I said. You are stealing. I am calling the police. Call them, he laughed. I'll be gone before they find me. This baby is fast, Aunt Maddie. She is fast. He revved the engine. I heard the roar of the Vate. You thought you could hide it from me, he taunted. I found the spare key, you genius. You hid it in the kitchen drawer under the takeout menus. Who hides a key there? I felt a chill. He had ransacked my kitchen. He had violated my home. Dylan, listen to me, I said. You are upset. You are driving too fast. Pull over. I'm not upset, he screamed. I'm winning. I always win. You all think you can control me. Screw you, screw Mom, screw Valerie. I'm going to California. I'm taking this truck and I'm never coming back. He looked away from the camera. He was looking at the road. Look at this speed, he yelled. 80. 90. Dylan, slow down, I shouted. It's wet out. Shut up, he screamed at the phone. He looked back at the camera. His eyes were wide and crazy. You can't tell me what to. Suddenly, his eyes went wide. Not with anger, but with fear. The phone shook violently. OSH, I heard the screech of tires. It was a long, terrible sound. Then the world on the screen spun. I saw a flash of guardrail. I saw the night sky. I saw sparks. There was a deafening crunch of metal. The sound of glass shattering. Then silence. The image on the phone was black. Dylan, I whispered, no answer. Dylan, I screamed. Silence. Then a faint groaning sound. I hung up. I dialed 911. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice. My nephew, I gasped to the operator. He crashed. He was on the highway. I think he's near the exit 4 ramp, please. I drove to the hospital. I didn't want to go, but I had to. I was the owner of the vehicle. I was the witness. When I arrived, Marlene and Greg were already there. They were sitting in the waiting room. Marlene was sobbing into a tissue. Greg was staring at the floor. They looked up when I walked in. Marlene didn't hug me. She just looked at me with dull, empty eyes. He's alive, Greg said. His voice was flat. Broken leg, broken ribs, concussion, but he's alive. The truck? I asked. Greg let out a short, humorless laugh. Destroyed, wrapped around a telephone pole. The police said he was doing nearly 100. I sat down in a plastic chair. I felt numb. A nurse came out a few minutes later. Family of Dylan Brooks. Yes, Marlene said, standing up. He's awake, the nurse said. He's on a lot of pain medication, but he's lucid. You can see him for a moment. We walked into the room. It smelled like antiseptic. The lights were harsh. Dylan was lying in the bed. His leg was in a cast. His face was swollen and purple. He had a bandage around his head. He opened his eyes. He saw Marlene. Then he saw me. The hate in his eyes hadn't gone away. It was just groggy now. Hi, baby, Marlene whispered. She reached for his hand. He pulled his hand away. He looked straight at me. She did this, he rasped. His voice was weak, but the venom was there. He pointed a shaking finger at me. She took everything from me, he told the nurse who was checking his IV. My aunt. She stole my truck. She made me crazy. It's her fault. The nurse looked at me awkwardly. He's confused, Marlene said quickly. I'm not confused, Dylan shouted. He tried to sit up but winced in pain. She ruined my life. Get her out of here. Get her out. The monitor started beeping faster. Ma'am, I think you should leave, the nurse said to me gently. He needs to stay calm. I looked at Dylan. He was 20 years old. He was broken in a hospital bed. He had destroyed 2 cars in 3 days. He had alienated everyone who loved him. And he was still pointing the finger at me. He couldn't see it. He truly couldn't see that he was the problem. I looked at Marlene. She wasn't defending him this time. She was just crying silently. I'm leaving, I said. I walked to the door. I paused and looked back at him. I didn't take anything from you, Dylan, I said calmly. You threw it all away. I walked out of the hospital room. I walked out of the hospital. I stepped into the cool night air. I didn't have a truck anymore. I didn't have a nephew anymore, not really. But for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. The weeks after the crash were a blur of paperwork and silence. My beautiful truck was gone. It was a total loss. The insurance company called me every day. The police called me. They asked if I wanted to press charges for theft. Technically, he had stolen it. He broke into my house. He took the key. He drove it without permission. I could have sent him to jail. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. I thought about him in that hospital bed. I thought about the hate in his eyes. No, I told the officer. I won't press charges, but I want a restraining order. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but I had to do it. I had to draw a line in the sand that was so deep he couldn't cross it. Dylan was discharged from the hospital 3 days later. He was on crutches. He had a cast on his leg and a brace on his neck. He called Marlene to pick him up. She didn't go, she told me about it later. She sat in her living room, staring at the phone while it rang. It rang and rang. I wanted to pick it up, she told me. My hand was shaking. I wanted to go get him and bring him home and make him soup. That's what I've always done. Why didn't you? I asked. Because I remembered his face, she said. I remembered him screaming at the nurse. I remembered him blaming you. And I realized, if I bring him home now, he will never change. He will kill someone next time, or himself. So Dylan took a taxi from the hospital. He didn't have anywhere to go. He went to his best friend, Kyle's house. Kyle was the one who had laughed the loudest at the dinner. Kyle let him sleep on the couch for 2 days. Then, Dylan started bossing Kyle around. He demanded Kyle bring him food. He complained that Kyle's apartment was too small. He made fun of Kyle's girlfriend. Kyle kicked him out on the 3rd day. Dylan went to another friend. He lasted a week there. He got caught stealing money from the friend's wallet to buy cigarettes. He was kicked out again. Every bridge he had built, he burned. He burned them with his arrogance. He burned them with his selfishness. He moved from couch to couch, getting desperate. He called me once from a blocked number. Aunt Madison, he said. His voice was different. It wasn't smug, it was panicked. I have nowhere to sleep, it's raining, my leg hurts. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen he had ransacked. I can't help you, Dylan, I said. You're going to let me sleep on the street? He cried. I'm family. Family treats people with respect, I said. You made your choices, you need to figure this out. I hung up. Then I cried for an hour. It hurts to be tough. It hurts to say no to someone you love. But I knew that saying yes would be worse. Saying yes would be participating in his destruction. A month passed. The silence in the family was heavy. Marlene stopped running. She stopped fixing. For the first time in 20 years, she just sat still. She came over to my house one rainy Tuesday. We sat on my back porch, watching the rain hit the grass. I haven't heard from him in 4 days, she said softly. He's figuring it out, I said. Or he's dead in a ditch, she said. Her voice broke. He's a survivor, Marlene, I said. He's smart when he wants to be. He just never had to use his brain because we did all the thinking for him. Marlene took a sip of her tea. She looked older. The lines on her face were deeper, but there was a clarity in her eyes I hadn't seen before. I messed this up, didn't I? She asked. It was a whisper, but it was the loudest thing she had ever said. I looked at her. I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't lie, not anymore. We all played a part, I said. But yes, you taught him that he was the center of the universe. You taught him that rules didn't apply to him. She nodded. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I thought I was loving him, she said. I thought being a good mother meant protecting him from pain. I didn't want him to struggle like we did growing up. Struggle is how we learn, I said. You took away his lessons. Every time he fell, you caught him, so he never learned how to stand up. I see that now, she said. I see it every time I look at the empty driveway where my car used to be. I see it every time I look at Greg, who won't even say Dylan's name anymore. She reached out and took my hand. I'm sorry, Madison, she said. I'm sorry I let him treat you like that. I'm sorry I laughed, I was weak. I was afraid of his temper, so I sacrificed you to keep him happy. I know, I said. I promise you, she said, squeezing my hand. It stops. If he comes back, it will be different. I won't be that mother anymore. I believe you, I said, and for the first time I actually did. 6 months went by, I healed, I really healed, I focused on my work. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I bought a used car, a sensible SUV. It wasn't as fancy as the truck, but it was mine, and no one mocked it. We heard rumors about Dylan. He was working at a warehouse on the edge of town. It was hard, physical labor. He was living in a small studio apartment above a garage. He wasn't on social media. He wasn't partying. We didn't reach out. We waited. Then, on a Sunday afternoon in October, he showed up. I was raking leaves in my front yard. Marlene was there, helping me. We were bagging the leaves and talking about recipes for Thanksgiving. A car pulled up. It was an old, beat-up Honda. It had rust on the bumper and a dent in the door. The driver's door opened. Dylan stepped out. I stopped raking. Marlene dropped the bag she was holding. He looked different. He had lost weight. The beer bloat in his face was gone. His jaw was sharp. His hair was cut short, almost military style. He was wearing work boots and a plain gray t-shirt. He still had a slight limp from the accident. He didn't swagger. He didn't smirk. He walked slowly up the driveway. He stopped 10 feet away from us. He didn't come too close. He respected the invisible line. Hi, Mom, he said. Hi, Aunt Madison. His voice was lower. It was quiet. Hi, Dylan, Marlene said. She didn't run to him. She stood her ground next to me. He looked at his boots, then looked up at us. His eyes were clear. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something else, exhaustion maybe, and shame. I have a check, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out. It's not much, he said. It's $500. It's for the deductible on your car, Mom. And for the window I broke at your house, Madison. Marlene looked at the check. She didn't take it immediately. I'm working at the distribution center, Dylan said. Night shift, it pays okay. I'm going to bring you a check every month until I pay off the cars. That will take a long time, Dylan, I said. Decades. I know, he said. I have time. He looked at me directly. It wasn't a glare. It was a look of recognition. I'm in therapy, he said. Court-ordered at first for the reckless driving charge, but I kept going. I go twice a week. That's good, I said. My therapist says I have a problem with entitlement, he said. He gave a small, dry laugh. I told her she was crazy. Then I told her about the birthday dinner. I told her what I said to you. He paused. He swallowed hard. She asked me why I thought it was funny to hurt the person who was trying to help me. I didn't have an answer. I've been trying to find the answer for 3 months. Have you found it? I asked. I think so, he said. I think I was small. And making you feel small made me feel big. It was easy. Because you always took it. I did, I said, but not anymore. I know, he said, and I'm glad you stopped taking it, because if you hadn't, I would probably be dead or in jail. He took a step forward, then stopped himself. He placed the check on the hood of my car. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I don't deserve that yet. I'm just asking for a chance to pay you back. I want to be accountable. That's the word my therapist uses. Accountability. Marlene stepped forward then. She picked up the check. She looked at it. It was signed in his handwriting. Thank you, Dylan, she said. Can I come for Thanksgiving? He asked. He looked like a little boy again for a second, hopeful and scared. Marlene looked at me. It was her decision, but she was checking with me. She was respecting my boundary. I looked at Dylan. I didn't feel the old anger. I didn't feel the need to punish him. I saw a young man who had hit the bottom and was trying to climb out. You can come for dessert, Marlene said firmly. We are having dinner at 4 o'clock. You can come at 6 o'clock. If you are sober and if you are respectful. It wasn't a yes. It was a conditional invitation. It was a boundary. Dylan nodded. He looked relieved. Okay, 6 o'clock, I can do that. He turned to leave. He walked back to his rusty car. He opened the door, then looked back at me. Aunt Madison? Yes, I like the truck, he said. It was a beautiful truck. I'm sorry I trashed it. I'm really sorry. It was just metal, Dylan, I said. You can replace metal, you can't replace people. I know that now, he said. He hesitated. Are we good? I thought about it. I thought about the pain. I thought about the slap. I thought about the laughter in the restaurant. We weren't friends. We weren't close. The trust was gone, and it would take years to build it back. It might never be what it was before. But the hate was gone. The cycle was broken. We were standing on new ground. It was hard ground, but it was honest. I looked him in the eye. We're getting there, I said. He nodded. He got into his car. He drove away slowly, using his turn signal. I watched him go. Marlene put her arm around my shoulder. We're getting there, she repeated. We picked up the leaf bags. We went back to work. The air was crisp and cool. It felt like a fresh